Tommy.
Hey Andrea, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Wondering how your dad's doing. I know that he had surgery yesterday.
He did. Dad had total hip replacement done, and I'm thrilled to report that he is doing well. He
Hmm.
is walking according to how he's supposed to be walking. He is. He's in a lot of pain,
Yeah, he
post-surgery
had
pain.
surgery. Yeah,
But I asked him. I said, "The pain that you had, how does it compare to the pain you have now?" He goes, "There's no comparison.
yeah.
That pain's gone." So
And
it seems to be successful. They were worried because his hips were kind of twisted up because of his back surgery. Those who know my dad knows that he walks with a little bit of a forward flexion, and that's because he was fused 25 years ago from L2 through S1.
yeah.
So he walks a little bit forward, and that took a toll on his hip. So he's doing great. He's walking tall. He's super brave and proud that he went through this, and his whole family was there to support him.
Well, I'm glad. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm sure you all. He's a great guy, and I love him, and he's always been nothing but the best to me. So I'm
yeah.
glad to hear that this will be better for him. How long did it take the whole surgery?
Well, the prep is a long time. So they had him come in at noon, and they prepped him and kind of waited. But,
Hmm.
he was in the middle of the day, and that doctor did 6 surgeries that day. The doctor was fantastic.
Wow.
And then they took him in about 2:40. The surgery was about an hour and 20 minutes, and then there was an hour recovery. So there was,
That's wild. You can do a total hip replacement in an hour and 20 minutes, though.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
it really is. And he's walking straighter than he was. He said his hips
and
feel
that's just
even.
24 hours later,
Hmm.
you know.
hmm So he's
So,
just on Tylenol.
yeah.
He's a champ. He's my dad. He's awesome. And we were all gathered by the hospital. The hardest part was that they they only let two people in the room at a time, and there's three of us. So we were like,
Oh, yeah.
my brother and I were
Well, your mom gets
playing tag.
your mom gets, yeah,
Mom
she's
was
the
fixed.
guarantee. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then it's between you and your brother.
mom
So,
is the guarantee there for sure. But
did you in your day you spent there, did you visit the cafeteria or any of the you have any of the hospital food there?
yeah, they have a good array of stuff that you can choose from. The line was really long where it came to like the burgers, and the guy was making the burgers and the patty melts and stuff like that. So I just grabbed one of the common sports drinks because I have a hard time sometimes eating when I'm nervous.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I know, you were obviously concerned for your dad and everything.
Yeah, and I
So,
had been running all morning and didn't sleep much that night just out of being
yeah, it's
worried
nerves.
for him.
Yeah.
So I grabbed one of those common sports drinks that costs, they were pretty cheap over there. I think it's subsidized somehow. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's like 1970 prices. And that's kind of what led to this podcast topic because I was astounded by what I saw. Um, so today we want to talk about something that gives you, I'm going to name a list here: inflammation, neuropsychiatric reactions such as headaches, convulsions, and depression, weight gain. Who needs that, right? Heart disease increase. It's strongly linked to acne. It increases your risk of type 2 diabetes. It may increase your risk of cancer. It may increase your risk of depression. It may accelerate the skin aging process.
Hmm.
Oh my God, that's like that one of those viral apps. It may, right? It may increase cellular aging. So all your cells on the inside of your body,
Yeah, which affects all of your organs and things like that.
everything.
Yeah.
It drains your energy. It leads to fatty liver, kidney disease, tooth decay, gout, as my mom says, dugout. That's exactly how she says it. And it accelerates cognitive decline and promotes Alzheimer, and it's basically called type 3 diabetes. You know what that one thing is? Tommy, do you want to be the bearer of bad news?
I'm going to go with door number one, sugar.
I think that is behind each door.
Yes. Um, yeah, and the thing is you hear that list and you would think that any one of those would be a good reason to stay off of high levels of sugar. but then you add them all up, one of the things that stands out to me is it slows you down. It's known to cause depression, and those two, those who suffer from depression would know that those two go hand in hand. A lack of energy, feeds into your depression, which feeds into your lack of energy, and then people tend to go to those sugary type of foods as comfort food when they're depressed, and so then they just get locked into this cycle. So
Obesity and type 2
right,
diabetes is on the rise.
and meanwhile they're putting on weight, and yeah.
Right. Mental illness is on the rise. And, 100 years ago, the sugar consumption, an average person for a year had 4 cups of sugar. 100 years ago, 4 cups of sugar a person a year. Now, it's 312 cups a year, which comes out to 6 cups a week. That's gross.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sugar.
And people have it and they don't really even notice it, though. They don't even realize that they're taking that level of sugar in.
Yeah, it's no wonder that metabolic issues are on the rise, chronic health conditions, and everybody's waistline is getting a little bit thinner. Yeah, cancer. I mean, you name it. Unfortunately, there are 61 names for sugar, and the FDA does a little confusion with us because they list it as several different names so that we do get confused, so that if we don't see the name sugar and we don't see the name corn syrup, we're going to just kind of glaze over it.
Well, it's when you look at a package or something and you see all of these different, technical names and scientific names for these ingredients, and you don't, unless you went to school for it, you don't know what the hell it means.
No.
But a lot of these things are variations of sugar, and there's a reason why they do that way.
Yeah, absolutely. The FDA has to list these ingredients by weight. Okay? So the more something weighs, it gets kicked up on the list. If they just did it by sugar and corn syrup, it would always be the first 3 ingredients on the label list.
Yep.
So if something calls for 100 grams of sugar, they're going to break it up by 10 different ingredients so that the weight stays low.
Right.
And that stays at the bottom of the list.
It's a loophole to be able to put more sugar into it and still adhere to the guidelines of the FDA.
Yeah. I was shocked that beverage that I chose had 9 grams of sugar in it.
Yeah. Which may not sound like a lot to people, but
it is when you look at the American Heart Association guidelines. So here's what they recommend for women. They recommend less than 6 teaspoons a day of sugar, which I still think is kind of high. But that also factors in regular fruit.
Right. And how many grams is that roughly?
24.
Yeah.
25 grams.
What about for men?
For men, they recommend less than 9 teaspoons a day, which is 37 grams, a little over 37 grams of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And,
but that's still, it's, if you look at, like, if you have a soda, on average, those are about 40, like a regular,
40 grams.
About 40 grams. I mean, that's your whole day right there, and then some.
On a soda,
on one. Now
on one soda.
Now think about people who drink like a half a case or something
like liter.
That. Yeah, or 2 liter or something like that.
Yeah,
it's so it's real easy to take in a lot.
And not to mention, and this is a whole nother podcast, but all of the added high intensity sugars in all of our packaged foods that we eat,
right,
that add up to sugar. I mean, we are way over our allotment, which is why we are consuming so much sugar every year.
Yeah.
0 calorie stuff isn't any better. The way they get away with it being 0 calorie is that it's not digestible. Your body can't digest the calories. So therefore they could classify it as 0 calorie, but there is no nutritional benefit in it whatsoever.
It literally just goes right through you. And personally, anything that's not digestible, in my opinion, is something you probably shouldn't put in your stomach.
It's true.
So,
but this is marketed towards people to give them that boost for their workout. They give them that boost to balance their electrolytes, but it's if you're not a high intensity athlete where you're training
Right.
hardcore,
Yeah.
this is going to mess you up.
Right. Because you see, athletes, and you see, guys on the football field, basketball court, you know, tennis players, and they're drinking sports drinks, and you got to understand that those athletes are operating at such a high intensity that they burn through a lot of those sugars and other things that are inside them. And that's why they take that stuff. But if you're someone who has one and then sits at your desk for the next couple of hours, it's not doing you any good at all. You're just taking in sugars,
and spiking your blood sugar.
It's spiking your blood sugar, and it's not going to hydrate you in the way that you think it's going to. So there's other alternatives to, sports drinks to have better hydration.
And here's the other thing. If you're that person that needs that boost before a workout, like you worked all day, now I need some sugar to boost me up. Well, sugar does boost you up. Sugar does give you the glycogen burns. It does give you that quick fix. But dun 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 dun. You have to understand that if your goal is weight loss, you ain't going to get into those fat storages until that sugar is burned off. So you're just stalling your fat loss process.
Right. Your body's going to burn up sugar first before it gets to your fat. And so if you go, I mean, I'm just kind of reiterating what Andrea said, but if you have a sports drink before your workout, it's basically like you just put up a shield over the fat that you're trying to eliminate. And so your workout's got to be able to break through that first before it's going to get to the fat that you went in there to try to burn in the first place. So you're slowing the whole process down by doing that.
Even if it's a 0-calorie drink.
Yeah.
Even if, and the other thing about 0-calorie drinks is that there's a lot of extra flavorings and dyes and colorings put into those drinks to make them more appealing.
And those are all just chemicals, and chemicals
lead to fatty liver.
They lead to fatty liver, they lead to cancer and all sorts of other stuff.
Here's an interesting little thing to think about. When you fast for your blood tests, when you have a fasting blood sugar reading, you have about 5 grams or 1 teaspoon of sugar floating through your entire bloodstream. Okay, does that make sense? It has. So 1 teaspoon of sugar throughout your entire bloodstream is a healthy blood sugar reading.
Right.
Think about what we're consuming and how it's just.
Well, if the average person is at 6 cups a week, that's too much.
That's way too much. So we wanted to provide you with some alternatives. I'm a huge water drinker, and I really usually don't drink those sports drinks because I just wasn't raised on them, and it's just not my palate. They're a little too sweet for me. But I do understand that people want to have something else to drink other than water. I mean, there's a lot of my clients do not like water. So I want to provide some type of alternative to a drink that you could have, a couple times a day, in addition to your regular water. The number one thing is infuse your water. So if you have regular water, you could add some electrolytes by putting some Himalayan sea salt in there, which is natural minerals that will balance your electrolytes. But also you can put in fruits and vegetables and different types of herbs or mints, whatever your palate is. Those are really, really, really hydrating. And, you're still getting your plain water in. We'll post a couple of those recipes up there. Another alternative to a sports drink is something that we like to call a jeltzer. And that is where you take 100% unsweetened fruit juice. So like a tart cherry, 100% unsweetened, or a pomegranate, something that really promotes, inflammatory property or anti-inflammatory properties, right? And good joint health and stuff like that, you could mix that with a seltzer. If you are a bubbly person, that would be fine for you. I would recommend no more than 1 or 2 a day on that, because it still does add up to the sugar
Yeah.
content. But it's providing so many more
There's
benefits.
You're getting benefits along with it, though. It's not just these either empty calories or sugar with just a bunch of chemicals and no fiber or any of the good, vitamins that come along with it.
Mm-hmm. And the last one is coconut water.
Yes.
And now that does have a higher sugar content, but I like to balance that with all of the benefits that it provides. It provides an electrolytes. It provides minerals. There's less sodium that what's in those sports drinks.
Absolutely. It's natural. It's extremely hydrating, and your body has a higher level of absorption with it than it does just with plain water. So coconut water is really it's very simple. And if you don't, and now if you're like me and you don't like the taste of coconut, they typically, most brands have an alternative coconut / pineapple flavored one, and those are very good to me, and it doesn't taste like coconut at all, because it's too bad, because coconut is fantastic for you, and I just can't stand that stuff. But
some people can't, right?
But I will say, if you're like me, look for that coconut pineapple.
Yeah, absolutely. So we encourage you to give these a try. Play around with it. Let us know what you discover, because we could always use a little change in our cup too.
Yeah, and if you have suggestions, we'd love to hear them for ourselves and for everyone else who's listening and participating on our Facebook page. It's good for us to pool all of our resources together, and that way everybody wins.
Absolutely.
So awesome. Well, I'm glad that even while you were keeping an eye on your father,
always working.
You were still working. So and this is all good information. And again, if anyone has questions, anything that we didn't answer, please do reach out to us. You can reach us on the Facebook page for the Trippi Coaching Podcast. You can hit us up on our email at the Trippi Coaching Podcast at Gmail. I, of course, have been who else but Tommy else.
And I'm Andrea Trippi. And until next time, here's to a healthier, more confident you.
The Trippi Coaching Podcast is produced and mixed by me. Who else but Tommy else? Theme song provided by Professor Click. Be sure and check him out at professorclick.com. All one word, KLIQ.com. The content provided in the Trippi Coaching Podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, health, wellness advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.